All right, so this is the way we talk about it at Citrix, because too often people think design is right here, that it's just a moment in time. Well, that's what the design team does, and we say no way. It's really about creating this total customer experience. It's about every single touch point your customer has should be a great one, whether it's you're pitching them in a sales meeting, or they're going to your website to learn about the product, they're downloading, they're using a trial, they're playing with it, or they're ultimately deciding to invest, or they have to call tech support because they're running into problems. Every single one of those touch points reflects your company, and you want to strive to create a great experience across the board. And we even talk about internally. Everybody has a customer. So the systems that we deploy internally, a lot of the work I'm doing now, it's with HR or finance or IT saying, guys, there's got to be a better way. The way we do expense reports right now, this is absurd. We can create a better experience for our internal customers. So these are some of the brands that are doing it well. I don't think any of these are perfect, but they really do focus on the customer experience, not just that product. It's about the product, the service, about every interaction touch point. One of the ones that's really resonated well at my company is Virgin America. So we have a big office here in Santa Clara. We have another large office in Fort Lauderdale. And I guess it was about 2 years ago, finally, a direct flight came in from San Francisco to Fort Lauderdale, and it was Virgin America. They were the first players to come in. And everybody was flying this airline and going, wow, this is different. This is better. When I check in, the people are nice. There's this beautiful white counter. It has a flower on it. I get my boarding pass. It's a nice little small card. The airline's got this cool, funky purple lighting. There's this interaction. I can get stuff whenever I want it. Every little aspect of the experience is well thought through, and people noticed it, and it stands out. And suddenly, even if it's more expensive for personal travel, people are choosing this airline over a United or over many of the other carriers because they recognize that they've done something really well here. So I think this is a good example of a company that's striving to create that great customer experience. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy. It requires dedication from day one, and that's what's so great about people who are starting a business. You can make this core to your culture from day one. One of the startups that we acquired, their mantra was simpler is better, and they had that from day one. And 12 years later, they still say simpler is better, simpler is better. So finding some little thing that you can glean onto that focuses back to the customer and making that core is a really key thing. It's much harder, like a lot of our enterprise products, to be now 20 years later trying to turn the ship. So learn and make this part of your brand early on. So how do you make this part of your brand? How do you focus on design early on? So I'm going to talk a little bit about principles, process, and people, and hopefully there'll be some good takeaways for you here at the end of the day. So let's talk a little bit about principles first. But before I do, everybody just take a moment. I'm going to give you about a couple minutes here to think about some of the products or services you love. So just think of one or two, and then jot down next to it, or think about why do you love them? What makes you love these products or services? So just take a moment. If you don't have pen or paper, there's a stack over here. But just take a moment to write down the names of these products or services and why you love them. Okay, who would like to share their product or service? Do I have a volunteer?
So the product I love is Dropbox.
Ah, okay, why?
And why is because there's no questions asked.
No questions asked. It
just does the job.
It just does the job. Love it. Great example. Who else? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just even having an example when because I thought about it a lot, and many people have tried to solve it before.
Mm-hmm.
When you have many devices, eventually a file is going to collide with another file. There's going to be like, you don't know which version is the latest. And I was like, how does it deal with that? And then I just realized it renamed both the files with dates. So it didn't even say anything about it. So I could just look at both the files and delete the one that was, the one I didn't want. So
I agree, because one of the most painful things used to be conflict resolution. Some of this dialog box would pop up, and you need to make all these decisions, and it's
at the
seamless.
Time I didn't want to take that decision.
Right. Great example. You had an example over here?
Oh, yeah. So, this is probably people are taking for granted right now on the Gmail account.
Gmail account?
I just had my Gmail account. I was really fascinated and I'm very grateful because I'm a hoarder. So I always hoard my emails because I want to track down how people are responsible for their replies to me. Whereas the regular emails, it's very hard to track down which email I received, which one I replied.
So it's easier to track it down?
Exactly. So they collect all the response in one thread, and just right there.
Yep. Very cool.
Easily.
Who else? Let's take maybe a couple more.
This isn't as much of a product or service, but it's an experience. I love going into the Apple Store because they make it so easy to spend money there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you walk in and I guess the best way to describe the emotional feel I have, I feel like I'm sort of floating on air. And they're not trying to sell me anything.
Yeah.
When it comes time to look at something and make a decision whether you're going to buy it, you don't even realize you're doing it. By the time you're done with it, you didn't realize you spent the money, and they don't make you feel like that at all. You just walk out there feeling incredibly good about it.
Yeah, you suddenly feel cool and hip when you're in that store. You're like, yeah, I'm with it. This is a cool place to be. One more example?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of cheating. I work here, but I have two eyes, and one of them is Instagram, and the other one is now. And I love them both very dearly.
Two different things.
For
Do
very
tell.
different reasons, but the simplification part of it definitely comes back into it for sure. So Instagram allows me to, well, as the millions of people that use it know, it allows you to feel like a fantastic photographer very quickly and share amongst many social networks easily. And then In and Out just has great ingredients. And I've only been on the West Coast for 4 years, but now I understand. Like all the people I meet from LA that I was talking about, I get it. It's really good.
Cool. So some great examples, and you want to sit back and think about these things. What are the products that you love and why? And you kind of write down the principles that are important. What stands out to you? What makes a really good product in your mind? And this was one of the core things when I joined Citrix. We needed to figure out what were some principles that we could all rally around in terms of creating great products. What was going to be important to us in our space? So really even thinking about your own personal experiences can be very valuable as you think about your own product that you're developing. So these are the ones that we focus on. We created these 3 years ago. They're not rocket science, but we wanted to pick a small set of things that were very memorable for everybody and that anybody could digest and understand. So make it simple. A lot of the examples we heard you call out were about simplicity. It makes my life easier. It's easy to use. It just works. Craftsmanship. I'll talk a little bit about this, but it's really attention to detail. I mean, that is what truly will create a great experience. Human goals, so the people who are going to be using your product and the experience they desire. Delight and delivering unique value. So let's talk a little bit about each of these. So simplicity, again, this should be, I would argue this should almost be on everybody's list. And simplicity is hard. It's much easier to make a really complicated product. It's much easier to say we've got to have this one more feature, 2 more ads, customer XYZ needs this. And it's okay to start out with a lot, but it takes a lot of discipline to peel things away. And back to the point of MVP, what is the minimum? What's the bare minimum? And you're much better off starting with that, a smaller set of features and functions, and really knocking them out of the park and creating a compelling experience than having too much stuff, too much clutter, and suddenly people don't even understand your product. So especially in the early stages, keeping it simple is critical. So this is a big challenge for us, GoToMeeting our product. And one of the things I would always hear people say is, oh, I love GoToMeeting, and the next thing they would follow it with is it's so much easier to use than WebEx. And that was really the core of this product. It was how to make something simple and easy, how to easily start up a meeting. And as we have gotten bigger and have more functions and more capabilities, we're on more operating systems, it's hard to maintain simplicity. It really, really is. Particularly, we start to add video capabilities. Suddenly we've got more controls and more widgets. So it's something you want to start out with early, but then let me tell you, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to keep things easy. So delight, I think this is something that's really, really key, and particularly the enterprise space is too often forgotten. And some people may say, well, what does delight mean in the enterprise space? Well, it's getting something done quickly, being really efficient, that feeling of, wow, that was easy, giving someone that feeling when they have to do an expense report or book travel, something they think is going to be really painful, and you can delight them. That's a really, really good thing. In the consumer space, it's making people go, this is cool, this is engaging, I want to continue to use this product. A great example of delight that I had just the other day, someone sent me a book via Amazon, a Kindle book, and I thought, oh, fantastic, I'm going to go in and get it, I download it, try to send it to my iPad, and it didn't go there. And I go back into Amazon, and it says, sorry, the gift has already been redeemed. And I'm like, oh, I'm stuck. So I go in and look for the help link. I'm already cranky because I hate having to deal with support issues. And I find a chat window, and I say, all right, I'm gonna type in my problem, and suddenly someone pops up right away and says, hey, how can I help you? I write in one line what my problem is. I'm not kidding. 30 seconds later, he's like, it's fixed. Anything else I can do? Whoa, I wasn't expecting that. That was really delightful. You solved my problem, super helpful. How else can I help you? And I said, well, actually, it looks like I sent it to the wrong iPad. That was the problem. I don't have that one anymore. Can you remove it? Done. No problem. So, there are really ways you wouldn't think of that you can delight your customers. So it's about, sometimes taking something that's often painful and making it really easy for people. Craftsmanship. So this is something that's so important from a design perspective, and often it really is forgotten or gets dropped off the list. Or sometimes they think, well, what does it matter if the button's in the upper right or the upper left? Why does it need to be 3 pixels over? That's part of craftsmanship, and it's important to get those details right, because it really does set that first impression. When people look at your product, if it looks sloppy, if it doesn't look like you've invested time, they think, well, what's the quality of this product going to be? There's spelling mistakes in here. Am I actually going to trust this product? Here's an example of a website that is actually out there now. Are you going to lease a car from this guy? If you do, you've got more trust than I do. I would not do anything on this website. I would run terrified. I'd probably go to something that looks more like this. It looks trustworthy. It looks like it's a place where I could go and lease a car and get what I expected. So you really need to think about the craftsmanship and that first impression that it can set. But craftsmanship is not just about the first experience, it's also about the total experience. If I think of an example of a company that is great about crafting an entire experience, it's Disney. Every sight, smell, interaction, music, everything that happens to you there is crafted. When Mickey shows up, where, it is all crafted. They have really laid out every single thing, and it's incredibly well orchestrated. So that's the example of the total, extreme, well-crafted experience. Deliver unique value. This is critical. If you're not going to be delivering value to your customers, what's the point? And this is really important for companies that have been around for a while, because you can get stuck in the trap of incrementalism, where you're just adding one more feature, one more feature, one more feature, one more feature, and that's not enough. If you keep doing that, the competition is going to blow past you. You may need to keep the lights on and keep those products going, but you need to figure out what's the next great thing. What's the new cool opportunity that I can offer my customers? So really important thing to think about. And a lot of times it's things that people think couldn't be redesigned or can't have the opportunity to be improved. This is a Nest thermostat. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but super slick, really cool, compelling design. And it's funny, they've kind of gone back to the old school, actually turn the dial. And it's a smart thermostat. It looks at your behaviors and what you do and how you use the thermostat to derive how it should work moving forward. So a really cool example of breakthrough innovation. So this one I want to spend a little bit of time on, and it's great because you guys were actually out there talking to customers last week. And it's interesting because sometimes your customer is your user. In a lot of cases they're not. So in my world, completely not. The person who is, in our executive briefing center looking at demos is often the CIO or the person who runs IT, and they're not the main body of users. They're deploying stuff to the masses. So you need to make sure you're talking to your users and understanding what their needs are and what they want. Absolutely, you need to make the buyer happy and capture them as well, but you've got to, in order to get a product that's going to be sticky and people are going to use and love, you've got to get to the end users. So you really need to to, you know, walk in their shoes. You need to understand their world. You need to understand their experience and what's working well and what's not working well. A lot of companies do this well in that they make sure their companies are using their products. So Ritz-Carlton, you know, everyone mandatory is required to stay at Ritz-Carlton properties and report back on that experience. You know, how was the customer experience? How were we doing? And it gives them really good data points. And that's a great thing to do. You know, at Citrix, we drink the champagne or eat the dog food, however people like to refer to it in their company. But it's really important to use your products day in and day out. But the thing is, you can't just rely on your opinion. You know, I think of us at Citrix, we're all tech geeks. We're all nerds. You can't rely on us. We don't reflect the average HR clerk or someone in procurement who may work in front of a computer, you know, 8 hours a day and then goes home and is, you know, they're hanging out with their kids or they're watching TV. They don't live and breathe technology like we do. So you need to be very careful in just relying on your own opinion. It's a great starting point, but you need to talk to the customers. And even Steve Jobs, you know, people say, oh, Apple, they never talk to customers, they never, you know, they don't do focus groups, they don't do those kinds of things which can give you bad data, but they absolutely, you know, they understanding the customer's world, understanding the interactions, it's a great place to look for opportunity. This is one thing I really like. It came from the Apple Marketing Handbook from 1977, and the top line in their philosophy is empathy. We will truly understand their needs better than any other company. This is key, because if you understand their needs, then you know where there's opportunity.